Ladies and gentlemen, please can I ask you to gather around the stage on the UK Innovation Hub to listen to our next exciting speaker from Them Design. Them Design provides specialist graphic design support for commercial architects, developers, and interior designers. As branding experts, they create original and engaging interior graphics for 3D spaces, helping bring clients' buildings, people, and brand closer together. So, please join me in welcoming Them's Managing Director, Dan Moscrop. Thank you.
The crowd goes wild. Hello, everybody. As just said, we are a design agency and we specialise in transforming spaces, specifically finding methods of branding to apply. That's me. Feel free to get in touch. Some people said many, many years ago I looked a little bit like this man. I can't see it myself. But during that time, I worked for a design agency called Navy Blue, and we used to do work for big brands like Orange. And one of the projects we did for Orange was their interior branding on a large scale in their Newcastle headquarters. Obviously, I'm slightly biased on this, but they'd selected Newcastle because they decided that the Newcastle accent and the Geordie accent was well written to give a sort of very happy and reliable, genuine service. I was also an Orange customer at the time, and also their branding designer. So I used to quite enjoy ringing them up and saying, "Hey, guess what? I designed your offices." At the time, there was two offices there. There was T1, which we spent a fortune on and made it look beautiful. We had rolling sky and clouds floating across the ceiling. And then there was T2, which everyone had the same ambition for, but Orange started to pull back the budget, and the budget shrank, and it ended up with some positive words on walls. So I used to phone people in T1, and they'd always say, "Wow, thank you so much. This is incredible. I love working here." A little bit down the line, I phoned up to pay a late bill, and spoke to a guy who sounded really quite peed off. And I said, "Oh, you know what? Which building are you in? I designed the interiors for that." And he went, "Wow, thanks. Would you work here?" And that stuck with me quite severely over the years. Good old Orange. So a few years later, people used to accuse me of looking like this guy. By this point, I had my own design agency. We've got a beautiful little office with a team of 8. We're doing award-winning work. We're lucky enough to have FTSE 100 clients. We've got an ambition to work in Ireland, US, Dubai, Australia, and we're slowly ticking them off. But we've done work with great brands like the National Trust, Viaduct, London Quadrant, the Culture Trust, which we've just done a big rebrand for one of their buildings in Luton. And then the Roundhouse, which most people will be familiar with. And we kept picking up more and more of these little sort of branding projects that involved the built environment. I kept having this little Geordie voice in the back of my mind, like, "Would you work here?" And I realised at that point that what we did really had quite an impact, quite a profound impact on people who worked in the environments that we were creating. So we applied that the rules we sort of set ourselves is we can't cut corners. We have to fully engage. And then a little while ago, I read this in one of Wally Olin's books, which is his book On Brand. And in On Brand, he says that with branding, the one constant is your building. And what's interested me about this is that there's so much change in the environment now. Your staff change. Staff typically last about 2 years. The directors and the CEOs last up to about 4 years now. It used to be 10. And the one constant that you do have throughout all this is your brand. So if we look at what's happened over the years, the 1950s, ironically, were more similar to what we had now, which is an open plan office. 70s went into the cubicles. The 80s, we had the hugest computers. And then in the 90s, sorry about the quality here, but the computers started to overrun the office, basically. You had so much equipment that not much space to actually personalize. And then Google happened. And Google happened with slides and all the ridiculous things that people thought, "My God, you can have this in an office space?" And although I thought this was a bit tacky at the time, this is starting to filter down in the same way fashion does from the catwalk out onto the streets. and people are genuinely wanting better office environments to work in. People are now looking for flexible working, they're looking for hot desking. So as a result of this, you need to create a cultural hub within your office space. Also, millennials are looking for corporate responsibility and wellness and mindfulness within the office space. So we became interior brand specialists. And our theory is that if you can get the people, the place, and the brand right, you can hit the sweet spot for your clients. And just to clarify, we're not interior designers, we're not architects, we're specifically brand specialists within this space, but it's allowed us to work with some of the world's best architects, one of which is Maury Smith, our favourite client. We've just finished up working on Primark for them, doing these brand walls, wallpapers and graphics. We even do big installations, but the idea of what we do is to try and engage people within the workspace itself. We've recently just completed this for Maury Smith and Sony and their brand walls. So, as I mentioned earlier, staff change. Millennials are expected to last about 2 years in their jobs. CEOs change, and businesses change. Innovation is making businesses change and be more agile all the time. So they've got to be faster thinking and more on their feet. So the one thing that they've got is their building, which is why we believe that if you brand it right and you engage people right, you'll have a much happier workplace. And just a thought to leave you with is that we spend 1/3 of our lives in our workspace. Thank you very much. If there's any questions.
Any questions for Dan? Dan, I've got a question for you. If you were to apply your graphic design skills to the Department for International Trade's office, what would you do?
I haven't been there. It's about, the Department for Industry and Trade do so many amazing things. There's so much to draw from and so much to do visually that you could pull that in. But culturally, there's some amazing stuff going on that you could draw from and create wonderful installations about.